Just a quick video. I'm just going to kind of go over some of the changes that have taken place over this last patch. I'm just going to cover some of the important stuff. Just getting into it. Crystal fragments. It looks like it got nerfed a little bit, but it actually will actually deal more damage once it procs, and this one actually goes up to about 17,000 because of the 33% more damage when it does proc. So this is just something to keep in mind. But anyway, I've got that. I've got Rune Cage. Rune Cage on this build is a 1 of 2 CCs, your other CC being Streak, but this one is kind of a point and shoot ability, and it works really, really well. So Daedric Minefield, I don't know too much about that. I haven't really been using it. This is the ability that I really like to use. This one will deal about 4,000 damage per second, and it lasts for 28 seconds. And I believe the number that I came up with earlier when I did the math was 118,000. This does 118,000 damage over 28 seconds, which is probably one of the strongest ultimate. One of the other ultimates that I see people using is Eye of the Storm, and that looks like that got a pretty big nerf. On my build before, it used to be higher, and this only lasts for 7 seconds, and it costs a lot more ultimate as well. This one costs 213 ultimate. Now if you have a lot of mobs around you and that sort of thing, this would actually be a pretty good ultimate to have, and with the lightning staff you'll get 8% more from that. Anyway, I see people using this, and it used to be a really good skill to have, but now I don't think so much. This is the one I really like to keep on. It's a really go-to skill. Power Overload is also pretty effective. I've fought people in Cyrodiil and Imperial City and that sort of thing, and I think this skill is as good as it is because of the frequency which light attacks can happen. It's not that much, but you know, when you have one right after another, it adds up pretty quick. Just going to destructive staff. Force pearls pretty much remain the same, but destructive reach really got a nerf. Now I have the master staff, which really, it still buffs that up, but there's no CC on this, but there is a really good damage over time. So buffed up, you know, we're looking at about 7,600 and about 16,000 after that, which is really, really strong in terms of damage over time. And this is a spammable, and you got to remember, even though that initial 76 hits, that damage over time is going to tick, and it's going to go up to about, on this build I believe it was 93, which is just about the same as Force Pulse. So this is a really good spammable to have. And so I've used that. Now, if you don't have a master staff, you can always go this route, using an infernal staff. But coming back here, all of a sudden your flame reach is kind of nerfed. You're not hitting nearly as hard. Your damage over time is about the same. It's actually a little bit more, but that's due to my willpower staff. But this no longer becomes your spammable. So if you're in that situation where you don't have a master staff, you might want to try putting force bolts here, using these two damage over time. Put that on your victim, and then with your light and your force bolts, hit them with that the rest of the time. Also use your rune cage. Ideally, you get them down to a point where you think they're not going to be able to survive, and then you put a rune cage on them, and you can finish them off with that. In the meanwhile, you got this and you got this working in the background. Degeneration is about 24 magic damage over 12 seconds. That got really buffed significantly. So that's basically that's a lot of damage over 12 seconds. And paired up with this works out to just about 25k. So 25 and 24, you're looking at about 49k over 12 seconds. Of course, this haunting curse counts as a direct damage, but it's basically a fire and forget, so it deals damage twice while you can be out doing other things. So these two together, you figure 49k, and then use your force pulse on top of that. Force pulse can be, it's kind of deceptive in the way it works, because each of these abilities can critical. For instance, your flame damage, your frost damage, and shock damage can go critical, or even all three. But that's where you can get some extra power there. That's why this ability actually feels kind of strong. But what I would recommend, if you don't have a master staff, try to get an Asylum staff. I don't have that, but a perfected Asylum staff, fire staff, will give you a status effect every couple shots. So that appears to be a really good staff to have, and that'll pretty much increase your DPS. Chances are they're gonna, from the shock damage, they're gonna take 8% more damage on top of that. So that's going to be working for you in the background, as well as flame damage and that sort of thing. But anyway, I'll put a link in the description below. Outcast did a video on the Asylum staff, and that would be a really good addition here on this build. But like I say, let's see, the Destruction Staff, the Eye of the Storm, it's just not putting out the damage that it used to. It costs a lot, and once it goes off for 7 seconds, and actually this ability just doesn't help you that much compared to the Greater Storm Atronach. This will deal 4,000 damage every second, and I believe the number I came up with was 118,000 versus whatever you're gonna get out of the storm, which isn't that much. Now, the storm would be good if there's a lot of mobs around you and that sort of thing. In that case, it would help you, but generally, for the most part, mathematically, it just doesn't add up. So I've kept using the Greatest Storm after neck. On my back bar, I still use Light's Champion. It's a good deal to get you out of trouble and that sort of thing. It's been nerfed, but it still works pretty well. I've got Radiating Regeneration buffed up. This has about 17,000 over 10 seconds, and if you're a high crit build such as I am, that's going to crit 50% of the time, and it's going to turn into a really strong heal for you. Now, Streak, that got a buff in the sense that you can do more of them in a row without burning through all your magicka. This is a really good skill to have. This basically stuns your enemies, and it gets you out of the way of a lot of trouble. Basically, if I'm fighting bosses in the Imperial sewers and that sort of thing, this has become invaluable to me in terms of navigating those guys. I can basically streak out of damage or streak out of danger or whatever. Very good skill to have. Boundless Storm. This got a real. It doesn't cost as much, and it's a very good skill to have. So I've kept it on. It increases your physical and spell resistance. Dark Conversion. This has been really important. Basically, if you use this right, you're not going to run out of magicka. A couple uses with this, and if you go like 2 or 3 of these, you'll keep your magicka up. One other thing with Streak is it's a really good CC. Once you learn to use this as a CC, it becomes really important and really good to have, really handy. I put Dampen Magic on. This is a light armor skill. I keep this here for situations where I might need more shields. I don't normally use this a whole lot. Normally what I use is Hardened Ward. Now, one other thing to consider with Hardened Ward is this actually went up in terms of cost. But it did increase in cost and that sort of thing. But typically what I use, I just basically put these two on the enemy, and it really adds up to a lot of damage. And since I have the Master Staff, I can go ahead and use that, and that gives me a lot of power to play around with, which is really nice to have. And I can hit them, and this is a spammable. It only costs, with the Destruction Staff, it cost me 1458, so I could spam this all day long basically, and I keep the damage over time on them, and the and plus the initial hit. So having these three works really well. I've kind of calculated it up with everything buffed. I'm at right at around 5,500 damage, just a tad more than that. So I have that going, and then in the background, of course, you know, I can just keep spamming this, which is basically works out to about another 9,300, I believe. And if you count the tick that you're going to get from the initial flame reach. So this works out really well. But anyway, those are the changes. Degeneration really got a buff. Haunting Curse really got a buff. And of course, Flame Reach did. It got buffed and a nerf at the same time. It lost its CC ability, but it really gained a lot of damage over time. But with that said, you can use Rune Cage, and that can be your CC, and it's still a very good CC. You just can't CC all the time with Flame Reach. But if you're playing it right, this won't hurt you at all. So I guess that's about it. You know, basically just hit him with these two, buffed up 49k over 12 seconds, and then spam him with this. And I believe the damage over time with the Master Staff, it works out to be roughly around, I believe it was 64,000 damage over time over 12 seconds. And then you've got the initial hit here, so works out pretty well. I've been playing with it like that, and it's worked out pretty good. So anyway, these two give you more. The reason I didn't use Crystal Frag is I'm just getting more with this than if I had put Crystal Frag on. And I realize this is a damage over time, but you know, the difference between 1,700 and or 17,000 and 23,000 is quite a bit. So I just thought I'd go ahead and share that with you. And I've been playing this for a while, and it works pretty good. I've killed a few Nightblades using this, and with Haunting Curse and Degeneration, and I might hit them a couple times before they disappear, but a lot of times they will they'll go ahead and die on me. So they'll be into stealth, but then they'll die, you know, just because of these damage over times. So your heals come from Radiating Regeneration. You just have to remember once every 10 seconds to have this. It gives you a significant amount of healing. So just, you know, remember that and keep that up. You also have healing from Dark Conversion. A lot of the times I'll use Dark Conversion, and I'll shield up first, use Dark Conversion. I'll also be sure to have this going in the background, so I have this heal going for me, and then I have this heal going for me as well. So altogether, it works out pretty well. So this can be something that you can use in an emergency, and it actually works pretty well as well. But yeah, if you have all these damage over times on a against a mom or a player, the chances are pretty good that you're gonna win and they're not gonna survive. So anyway, I guess that's about it. I guess this game is gonna shut down for service. So I'll be ending the video, and I guess I'll see you guys out there. Take care.